obviously someone on the Democrat side of things leaked this stuff to the press to motivate the base to try and get, a little bit of pressure on these Supreme Court justices. So I think that's really where we're going with this.
Republican candidate for Senate in Pennsylvania, Kathy Barnett, she was at the Newsmax debate last night for GOP primary candidates, pushing back against Dr. Oz's claims that he's the America First candidate. The debate proving to be a pivotal in one of the nation's most contested races. Joining us now to discuss, host of This is America with Rich Valdes, Rich Valdes. Also with us, Democratic analyst Jonathan Harris. Hey guys, nice to see you today. As we are in, good morning to you, we're in primary season, right? And we saw what happened in Ohio. When you take a look at the results of that primary election, Trump-endorsed candidate J.D. Vance won his primary. We know Dr. Oz has Trump's endorsement in Pennsylvania. Rich, I'll start with you. Does the same result happen there?
It's unclear, but yeah, I do think Dr. Oz is going to take it away. I think he's got the best name recognition. I think he dominated last night because he's a polished veteran of television. He's got great bedside manner, and he was really succinct on his points. I think Ms. Barnett also did a great job highlighting certain issues that are really important to the electorate, and we're going to see how she comes up from behind if she can.
All right, so obviously, you got to make it through the primaries to get to the general election here. But Jonathan, from your perspective as a Democratic analyst here, what are the issues that you are looking for as Democratic candidates make their way through the primaries?
It's just interesting to me that this race is, they're spending $60 million, a reported $60 million on this race, which was absolutely fascinating to me. And the debate last night also interesting, I think, for me. Obviously, everybody's tongue right now is the Supreme Court pending Supreme Court decision, and they spent a considerable amount of time talking about abortion last night. It's going to be interesting to see if Dr. Oz continues to be the name that everyone's talking about, how he navigates that, because in the past, he's definitely at least indicated that he was a supporter of abortion. So it's going to be interesting to see how on certain comments on radio shows that he went on before and talking about the economic impact of states who ban abortions and what could happen to businesses leaving. So it'll be interesting to see him kind of try to pivot on that and how he's going to navigate that. That was the most interesting to me last night.
Well, it was, of course, following the news of the week, the leak from the Supreme Court draft opinion. So candidates were asked about it. Here's what Kathy Barnett had to say, and then we'll get to Dr. Oz as well.
I am the byproduct of a rape. My mother was 11 years old when I was conceived. My father was 21. I was not just a lump of cells. As you can see, I'm still not just a lump of cells. My life has value. And that is one of the reasons why it was so very disturbing when I saw Mehmet Oz running for this particular race, when I've seen him on numerous occasions, and specifically at the Breakfast Club, saying that my life was nothing more than a acorn with electrical currents. I am wondering if the good doctor has now since changed his position on that.
Life. As a heart surgeon, I've operated on small children, a few days old, and witnessed the majesty of their hearts pounding blood, even though it's ill, because I'm operating on them, through those bodies. I would never think of harming that child, or even 9 months earlier, because life starts at conception.
Both coming forward with pro-life views. Rich, what stood out to you from both of those candidates?
Yeah, well, again, like I said, Barnett was a clear standout with her commentary on her background and all that. I think Dr. Oz is not going to have so much trouble overcoming these obstacles because politicians do this all the time. They were pro-life, they were in pro-life, they were in TV, now they're in this. It happens all the time, and it's only going to affect a handful of single-issue voters. I think the reason that's on the forefront is obviously because it's in the forefront of the media that obviously someone on the Democrat side of things leaked this stuff to the press to motivate the base to try and get, a little bit of pressure on these Supreme Court justices. So I think that's really where we're going with this.
And at this point, we don't know who is behind the leak. There's plenty of speculation that perhaps it could be someone who would have access to the documents. A law clerk might have access to the draft opinion. But Jonathan, once the marshal concludes the investigation and finds out who's behind it, is this acceptable? Do you think there should be some sort of punishment for someone who provided this information to the press?
It was incredible to me watching Mitch McConnell act as though the story was the leak instead of the idea that women in probably half the country will lose the ability to have autonomy over their bodies. Just the idea that, like, no, that's not the issue here. The issue is that somebody got you that information a little bit sooner than we had anticipated. I mean, look, if they find out who did it, I'm sure that there are protocols in place. If there are, those protocols should be adhered to. But that's not the story. Mitch McConnell is wrong. The story is obviously doing what I think a lot of people didn't even realize could be done, which is essentially overturning a past precedent, a past decision that many people thought was settled law. You know, I mean, that's obviously going to throw a lot of situations for women and their health care, women who are victims of rape. I mean, that was one of the issues in the debate last night that they were talking about, is neither one of the candidates was really answering.
Sure. Running short on time. Just want to get this last pitch to Rich. Of course, we've heard that in the leaked draft, the decision would then be up to the states. Essentially, then voters would have a chance to vote on states' access to abortion. Final thoughts from Rich.
Yeah, well, I think I disagree with Mr. Harris, only because women are going to continue to get abortions in New York and California and New Jersey, everywhere else that they've gotten abortions for a long time. There might be a handful of states that change their laws, but access to abortion is going to continue to go unchecked. And obviously, the funding is going to be there from the federal government the way it's always been there. So that's really not the story. The real bottom line here is that somebody said, you know what, we need to put this out there ahead of time so we can get in front of it politically, so we can have people beating each other up in New York City and in Los Angeles and in these big protests. The protests worked really well for Democrats last time, and they're thinking that it's going to work well again. I think they're wrong, and I think that's the real story.
We've already seen some protests. Hopefully it remains nonviolent. You can protest peacefully. Out of time, up against a hard break. Rich Valdes, Jonathan Harris, thanks, guys. Appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
You got it. New hour of National Report starts right after this break.